The wind rolled across the high plains like a restless spirit, sweeping long ribbons of red dust into the morning sky. Colorado Territory, 1867, raw, wide, and unforgiving. The kind of land that tested a person's bones before it tested their courage. Vivi stood at the edge of a shallow creek, her reflection flickering in the ripples, like a ghost she barely recognized. Her hair, long, dark, and braided tight, hung over the faded calico dress the settlers had forced on her. The cloth felt wrong on her skin, stiff and foreign, nothing like the soft doeskin she had worn before her village burned, and the soldiers scattered her people like leaves in a storm. For months she had walked behind the wagon train as a silent captive. Labor, they called her. A pair of wary, judgmental eyes followed her everywhere. They made her cook, mend, wash, and haul water, always with the same cold suspicion. To them, she was an outsider, a threat, a reminder of a land they were trying to claim as their own. But this morning the air felt strange. Empty. Too empty. Vivi lifted the wooden bucket, cool water sloshing over her fingers. A prickle crept up her spine. Something was wrong. She turned, scanning the open land. Then she froze. The wagons were gone. The long line of white canvas tops, always crawling across the horizon like a sluggish, creaking serpent, had vanished. Only the churned wheel ruts remained, cutting across the earth in fresh, sharp tracks. Dust still hung in the air, shimmering in the rising heat, not yet settled. They had left moments ago. They hadn't forgotten her. They had abandoned her. The truth struck her like a hammer swung by fate itself. Vivi's jaw tightened, but her breath trembled despite her effort to steady it. Being left here, alone, unarmed except for a small, bone-handled knife, was not an accident. It was a sentence. A quiet, cowardly execution without bullets. She set the bucket down slowly, every muscle coiled and alert. Her gaze swept the landscape, endless sagebrush, distant ridges, the wide, empty prairie stretching toward a sun already growing harsh and merciless. She had lived enough seasons to understand what awaited her by nightfall. Wolves, outlaws, cold, hunger, or simply the land itself, vast, indifferent, deadly. She reached into her small cloth bag, fingers brushing the few items she owned. A strand of her mother's beads, a small carved charm, and dried corn she kept out of habit, even though it was nearly useless out here. These were the last pieces of her life before the world fell apart. Her throat tightened, a fragile ache behind her sternum. Not fear. She had felt fear before. This was something deeper, something rawer. Betrayal. The wind shifted again. Hoofbeats. Slow, steady, rhythmic. Approaching from the opposite direction of the wagon tracks. Vivi spun around, knife flashing into her hand. She crouched instinctively, shoulders squared, breath sharp. Dust swirled at the crest of a small rise. Then a lone rider emerged, tall in the saddle, broad-shouldered, wearing a sun-bleached hat pulled low. His silhouette cut a bold shape against the blazing sky. He didn't rush, didn't shout, just rode closer at a careful, deliberate pace. Vivi tightened her grip on the knife, every sense sharpened. She'd seen men like him before. Drifters, scouts, cattle drivers. Some were fair, some cruel. All were dangerous. The rider eased his horse to a halt a few yards away. He raised both hands slowly, palms open, a gesture meant to calm skittish animals and frighten people alike. "I don't want trouble," he said, voice low, steady, unhurried. "Name's Noah Tanner. I'm riding through, that's all." Vivi didn't answer. Her dark eyes locked onto him, sharp and defensive. She shifted her footing, ready to flee or fight. Noah took her in with one long, considering look. The dress that didn't fit her, the knife that did, the abandoned tracks stretching behind her like a betrayal carved into the earth. "You with that wagon train?" he asked. Silence, but the truth lay plain in the dirt. He sighed, rubbing a hand across his jaw. "Hell of a thing," he murmured. His horse pawed the ground, sensing the tension. Vivi didn't blink. Noah slowly dismounted. He kept his distance, boots crunching softly in the dry grass. "If you stay here," he said gently, "night will take you. Wolves, Or men who ain't worth the dirt on their boots? The wind whispered across the open land. Noah met her eyes, steady and unafraid. "Come with me," he said. "I'll get you out of this." And for the first time since the wagons vanished, Vivi's heart gave a single, uncertain beat of hope. Fragile as dust, but still alive. The plains were quiet except for the restless wind sweeping across the dry grass. But Vivi's pulse thundered like a war drum. She kept the knife raised, her stance tight and unyielding. Noah Tanner didn't move toward her, not an inch. He simply rested one hand lightly against his horse's saddle and waited, as if understanding that one wrong shift could set her running. Vivi had met enough white men to know what danger looked like. Some wore cruel grins, some hid their intentions behind polite smiles, but they all had the same hunger in their eyes: ownership, control, possession. Noah's eyes were different, clear, steady, watchful, yes, but not greedy. Even so, she didn't trust him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Noah spoke slowly, letting his voice settle in the air like dust. "I'm not here to harm you," he said. "I'm offering you a way out before the dark claims the land." Vivi's grip tightened around the bone handle of her knife. The weight of it grounded her, a reminder of who she was, and who she could never allow herself to become again. "You ride your side," she said sharply. "I ride behind. I hold my knife. You don't touch me unless needed." Noah lifted his chin a little, not offended, just acknowledging the terms. "That's fair," he said calmly. "You'll get no trouble from me." He stepped back, giving her open space, letting her choose. It was the first time in months anyone had given her any choice at all. Vivi hesitated. The land stretched in every direction, vast and golden and cruel. If she walked, she wouldn't last the night. If she stayed, she'd be carrion by morning. And if she went with the cowboy, her heart flickered like a candle in a draft. Finally, she nodded once. Noah exhaled, soft and relieved, and mounted his horse. When he extended a hand to help her up, Vivi ignored it, placing her foot in the stirrup and pulling herself up with nimble, practiced strength. She settled behind him, leaving several inches of distance between their bodies. Her knife remained in her hand, blade pressed lightly against her thigh. Noah didn't comment. He just clicked his tongue, urging the horse forward. As they started across the open plains, Vivi tried to keep her breathing steady. The horse's powerful stride jolted her. The speed was startling after so many months trudging on foot. Wind whipped through her braids, carrying the tang of sagebrush and sun-baked earth. She looked around. The endless sky, the rolling grass, the far-off mountains stained blue by distance. It all felt too open, too exposed, too easy for danger to come racing over the horizon. "If he betrays me," she thought, "I'll jump. I'll hit the ground running before he even knows." She kept her knife ready. Noah guided the horse with steady hands. "You can hold on to the saddle if you need," he offered, voice drifting back. "I don't need," she replied instantly. He chuckled, a low, warm sound that didn't quite fit the harsh land around them. "All right then." Hours passed. The sun dipped toward the west, melting into shades of amber and burnt orange. Noah eventually slowed the horse near a small grove of cottonwoods by a narrow stream. "We'll camp here," he said, sliding down from the saddle. Vivi dropped to the ground before he could offer help. Her legs trembled slightly. She hadn't ridden like that since before her world fell apart. She hid the weakness, straightening her spine. Noah collected firewood while she watched every move. When he returned, he sparked a modest fire, small, controlled, respectful of the land. Without asking, he laid out 2 bedrolls with a distance wide enough to fit a river between them. "You sleep," he said, settling down with his back against a tree. "I'll keep watch." Vivi crouched beside the flames, knife still in hand. Her gaze followed his silhouette. Broad shoulders, calm posture, hat tipped low, but not enough to hide his eyes. Eyes that kept drifting toward the dark tree line, not toward her. "I don't trust you," she said quietly. Noah didn't flinch, didn't look offended. "Good," he replied with a faint smile. "Trust is earned out here." The fire cracked softly between them. Vivi didn't lie down. Not yet. But for the first time since the wagons vanished, she didn't feel completely alone in the vast, unforgiving night. Morning crept over the plains in soft gold, brushing the tops of the cottonwoods and turning the Arkansas River into a shimmering ribbon of light. The land was cool, quiet, and honest, the way the West always was before the sun climbed high enough to burn it raw. Vivi walked beside Noah's horse, her steps steady but watchful, every sense tuned to the rustle of grass and distant cry of meadowlarks. The night had been long. She hadn't slept more than a few winks, her hand curled tightly around her knife, her eyes drifting again and again to Noah's silhouette resting against the tree. Now in daylight, she still kept her distance, but the sharp edge of her fear had dulled into a gritty, reluctant caution. Noah rode slow, letting his horse drink from the river when it wished. For a while they traveled without words, the kind of silence that belonged to wide-open country, unforced, steady, almost comforting. Finally, Noah cleared his throat, his voice blending with the whisper of moving water. "I wasn't always out here," he said. "Used to be a farm boy from Ohio. Cornfields, muddy boots, that sort of life." Vivi didn't respond, but she listened. The tone of his voice wasn't boastful or proud. It was low, worn, threaded with something deeper. "When the war started, I joined the cavalry," he continued. "Figured it'd be quick. Everyone did. But war doesn't end just because you want it to." His eyes drifted toward the riverbank, as if he were seeing something far beyond it. "I lost my folks to typhoid while I was gone," he said quietly. "Came home to an empty house. Sheriff told me they'd been buried weeks before. Farm was foreclosed on, nothing left but a broken fence and a few stubborn weeds." The simplicity of his words carried a weight that hit Vivi harder than she expected. Loss was something she understood, too well. Noah glanced down at her. "Figured I'd head west after that. A man with nothing might as well chase something." Vivi walked in silence for several more steps. The tug in her chest, small, reluctant, unwelcome, refused to leave. "You speak," Noah offered gently. "If you want. If not, that's fine too." She hesitated. Talking about her past felt like peeling the hide off a wound that had never healed. But the river's murmur, the quiet rhythm of hoofbeats, and Noah's rough, steady voice created a strange stillness around her, an opening she hadn't expected. "My people were a small band," she began slowly. "We lived near the foothills when I was young. Not many of us, but we had enough. Enough to hunt, enough to survive." Noah didn't interrupt. He watched the river ahead, giving her space. "My mother died one winter," Vivi said, her voice steady but faint. "Cold season came early. Firewood ran thin. Snow kept falling." She inhaled a shaky breath. I held her hand. It was warm at first. Then, nothing. The memory rose like smoke, sharp, painful, lingering. "After that," she continued, "soldiers came one morning. Before the sun, horses pounding, guns loud. They took everything that still breathed." Noah's jaw tightened the slightest bit. "I hid," Vivi said, "in a hollow under the rocks. I watched my home burn." Her gaze hardened, dark and unflinching. "I was found later by the settlers, bound, dragged, given away like a piece of cloth." For a long moment, all that moved was the river. Noah finally broke the silence, his voice low but firm, strong in a way that didn't demand anything, only offered truth. "Your people deserved better." The words landed in Vivi's chest like warm embers after a long, cold night. Unexpected, unfamiliar, dangerously gentle. She blinked, unsure how to respond. She had heard many things from white men before. Insults, fear, disgust, mockery. But never this. Never empathy. For the first time, she looked at Noah without a blade of suspicion between them. Not trust. No, not yet. But something shifted. A thread, thin as horsehair, tugging quietly between them. They walked on beside the river, the plains stretching vast and open before them, and Vivi realized she wasn't listening out of fear anymore. She was listening because she wanted to. By midday, the heat had settled over the plains like a heavy wool blanket, thick, shimmering, and relentless. The Arkansas River curved lazily beside them, its surface glittering beneath the sun. Noah rode with easy rhythm, scanning the land the way seasoned men of the frontier did, eyes narrowed, shoulders loose, but every fiber alert. Vivi walked a few paces behind, her breathing steady, her steps soft and deliberate. Though she said nothing, Noah could tell she was fighting her own memories as fiercely as the land fought the wind. Then, something shifted. Noah reined in his horse with a sharp, quiet tug. The animal snorted, ears pricking forward. A faint plume of dust rose on the horizon, thin at first like smoke trailing from a distant campfire. But Noah recognized it instantly. That wasn't campfire smoke. That was riders. Multiple riders. He leaned slightly in the saddle, judging the speed, direction, and spread of the dust cloud. "Damn," he muttered under his breath. Vivi reached his side in seconds. "What is it?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he watched the dust carefully, jaw tightening. The cloud grew thicker, darker, rising fast from the low stretch of prairie behind them. "They're riding hard," Noah said finally. "Too hard for travelers. Too hard for anyone minding their own business." Vivi's pulse kicked. She had seen this before. The way the earth trembled before mounted men swept in like locusts. Noah didn't waste another second. "Come on." His voice was calm but firm, a quiet urgency that needed no explanation. He veered off the riverbank and guided the horse toward a narrow, barely visible path cutting through the brush. A game trail. It twisted through the cottonwoods and up a small rise, almost hidden by the scrub. Noah urged Vivi closer as he navigated the tight opening. "They're not just riding fast," he said, glancing back at the dust cloud growing larger. "They're following." Vivi's breath caught, not from surprise, but from confirmation of what she'd already sensed. "They want something," she murmured. "Us," Noah corrected. But Vivi shook her head, eyes darkening like storm clouds. "Not us. Me." Noah looked at her, startled. Vivi didn't slow her step. Her voice fell to a low, steady whisper. "Those men, they hunt Apache, sometimes to sell to traders, sometimes to hand over to soldiers, sometimes worse." The words were stark, bitter, shaped by memory and pain. Noah stared ahead, his expression darkening under the shadow of his hat brim. Something grim settled in his jaw. Anger, not fear. "We're not letting them get close enough to try," he said. The trail narrowed sharply. Sagebrush scraped against their legs, and the horses' hooves thudded over uneven earth. Noah kept them moving at a steady but careful pace, weaving through the trees until the ground dipped into a rocky wash. Ahead, canyon walls rose like jagged, sun-baked teeth, carved in twisting shapes by wind and time. The entrance yawned before them, a narrow, winding throat of stone. "Here," Noah said. "We'll lose them in the canyon." Vivi hesitated only a fraction of a breath before nodding. She knew these places, the way sound echoed and vanished, the way trails split and misled anyone unfamiliar with them. The space tightened around them as they entered. Sunlight fractured across the stone walls, creating harsh slashes of gold and shadow. The air cooled, but the tension grew thicker, heavier. Behind them, the distant thunder of hooves grew faint, but not gone. Noah glanced back, his voice low. "They're still coming." Vivi stepped closer to him, scanning the walls, reading the land with instinct born from generations who had walked it long before settlers came. "They are not after only you," she whispered. Her voice carried more truth than fear. "They smell me." The words echoed off the canyon walls like a warning. Noah's grip tightened around the reins, his expression hard as flint. "Then we make damn sure they don't get either of us." They moved deeper into the twisting canyon, the echo of their footsteps blending with the distant growing drum of pursuit. Every turn felt tighter, every shadow deeper, every heartbeat louder. And somewhere far behind them, the dust cloud thickened and followed. Night settled over the canyon like a dark, heavy blanket, thick, silent, suffocating. The last streaks of sun faded from the jagged stone walls, leaving only a dim sliver of moonlight to guide them. Noah led the horse deeper into a narrow alcove carved naturally into the rock, a place sheltered from open view. The air cooled quickly, carrying the sharp scent of dust, stone, and distant sage. "We can't risk a fire tonight," Noah murmured, his voice low but steady. Vivi understood without needing explanation. Fire meant warmth, comfort, safety. But fire also meant light. Light that could be seen from miles away. Light that would tell the riders exactly where to find them. She nodded once, a silent acceptance of the cold that was coming. Noah unsaddled the horse as quietly as a man could. He moved with practiced efficiency, no wasted motion, no clatter of metal or careless sound. Vivi watched every step, her own senses stretched thin, tuned to the smallest echo in the canyon. When he spread their bedrolls, he placed them in the darkest corner of the alcove, shielded by a jut of rock. They were close enough to speak in low voices if needed, but far enough for her to maintain whatever boundaries she required. Vivi lay down, but sleep didn't come. Her hand curled tightly around the handle of her bone knife, knuckles pale under the moonlight. She kept her eyes half open, tracking the shadows moving gently as the wind whispered across the canyon floor. Even in stillness, her body was coiled, tense, ready to run or fight. Noah didn't lie down. He sat with his back to the stone wall, one knee bent, rifle across his lap. His silhouette was a dark, rugged outline, shoulders broad, hat tilted low, breathing slow and controlled. He wasn't trying to look fearless. He simply was. For a long while, neither spoke. The only sound was the wind sighing through the canyon and the occasional scrape of pebbles as some small creature scurried away from the cold. Finally, Vivi broke the silence. "If they catch us," her voice was barely more than a breath, tight with a fear she hated admitting. She swallowed hard. "What will they do?" Noah didn't answer immediately. He didn't offer hollow reassurances or pretty lies. He stared out into the darkness, jaw tight, eyes unblinking. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, rough, and honest. "I won't let them touch you." The words weren't loud, weren't heroic, but they were solid, like a promise hammered into steel. Something inside Vivi shifted, not melted, not softened, but shifted, like the first crack in ice after a long winter. She looked at him, really looked, seeing not just a white man on a horse, not just another danger in a world full of them. She saw the exhaustion in his shoulders, the determination etched into his brow, the quiet concern behind his guarded expression. Noah Tanner was a man who'd walked through darkness and carried its weight without complaint. And for the first time since being taken from her people, Vivi didn't feel entirely alone in the night. She moved, not much, just a few inches, but closer to him, not for comfort, not for trust, but for survival. The cold bit at her skin, and the canyon felt too wide, too exposed, too vulnerable. Closeness meant warmth. Warmth meant life. Noah didn't shift away. He didn't react at all except for a brief glance in her direction. Soft, understanding, respectful. He kept his eyes on the canyon opening, his broad frame angled protectively toward her. "You should try to sleep," he whispered. Vivi shook her head. "I cannot. You've got to stay strong for tomorrow." "I stay strong," she replied quietly, "because I stay awake." A faint smile tugged at one corner of Noah's mouth. Quick, barely visible. "Fair enough." Another long silence passed. Somewhere in the distance, a rock tumbled. A faint echo drifted through the canyon, almost too soft to hear, but not soft enough to ignore. Vivi tensed instantly. Noah's hand slid toward his rifle. "They're close," she whispered. "Closer than I'd like," he murmured. The night pressed tighter around them, thick with danger. But for the first time, Vivi didn't face that danger, with only her knife and her instincts. She faced it with someone who had sworn, quietly, earnestly, without hesitation, that he would stand between her and the men who hunted her. She didn't trust him yet, but she no longer feared him. Not tonight. Dawn crept quietly into the canyon, painting the stone walls in muted strokes of gray and pale gold. The cold clung stubbornly to the ground, refusing to release its grip even as the first light touched the earth. Noah had stayed awake most of the night, listening, watching, waiting. Vivi, though she drifted in and out of restless sleep, never loosened her grip on her knife. Just before sunrise, Noah stiffened, head tilted, eyes narrowing. A faint tremor rippled through the ground, subtle at first, then unmistakable. Hoofbeats, multiple, moving fast. He reached out and touched Vivi's arm, voice barely above a whisper. "They found us." "Move!" Vivi jolted upright. Her exhaustion vanished, replaced instantly by raw electric alertness. She grabbed her small bag and followed Noah as he hauled the horse to its feet. No wasted seconds, no hesitation. They had outrun danger for a day and a night, but fate had closed the gap. The first shout echoed through the canyon just as Noah swung Vivi onto the horse. "Hang on," he growled. Hooves thundered as they burst from the alcove, Noah urging the animal into a hard, pounding sprint. The canyon walls blurred on either side, towering slabs of sun-baked sandstone streaked with shadows. The air rushed cold against Vivi's face, but behind them the dust cloud rose fast and violent. 4, maybe 5, riders tore around the bend, their silhouettes dark and vicious in the morning light. Vivi's breath caught. Noah didn't look back. He didn't need to. The sound was enough. Gunfire cracked through the narrow space. A bullet ricocheted off the canyon wall with a sharp metallic whine, showering them with fragments of rock. The horse bucked slightly, terrified, but Noah leaned low and kept it steady with practiced iron control. "Keep your head down," he shouted. Vivi pressed closer against his back, eyes narrowed against the wind and the grit. Her heart hammered a furious rhythm, but her mind stayed clear. She scanned the canyon ahead, reading the land as if it were a familiar trail from her childhood. Another gunshot split the air. A chunk of stone exploded inches from Noah's shoulder. "Damn it," he muttered, jerking the reins. He veered sharply, pulling the horse into a narrow ravine on the left. The descent was steep, rocky, dangerous, but it offered cover from the gunfire. Behind them, horses screamed in frustration as the riders scrambled to follow. The ravine twisted like a serpent. Sunlight blinked in and out of the narrow strip above. Noah guided the horse with instinct and grit, dodging jagged rocks and sudden drops. Vivi clung to the saddle horn with one hand, knife still in the other, refusing to let fear control her. A third gunshot cracked, this one closer, deadly. The bullet slammed into a slab of stone beside them, sending shards flying. One struck Vivi's cheek, leaving a sharp sting and a thin line of blood. She didn't flinch. She wiped it away with the back of her hand and kept looking forward. The ravine widened abruptly into a fork, 2 branching paths twisting deeper into the canyon maze. Noah hesitated for the briefest moment, reading the terrain. But Vivi had already seen what he hadn't. "Left!" she shouted, pointing hard. "Canyon splits, go left!" Noah reacted instantly, trusting her without question. He jerked the reins and the horse lunged into the left passage just as another bullet sliced through the space where they had been a heartbeat before. The new path narrowed quickly, then curved sharply behind a thick outcrop of rock. The wall shielded them, swallowing the echo of gunfire. Their pursuers hit the intersection moments later, but the left passage vanished from sight almost immediately, hidden by the bend. Noah slowed the horse only enough to keep from crashing. He exhaled a rough breath. "You knew this trail," Vivi nodded, chest still heaving. "My people traveled these lands long before yours came." A moment passed, brief, breathless, but powerful. Noah looked over his shoulder at her, eyes fierce with respect. "Well," he said, voice low but steady, "you just saved our hides." Their pursuers' shouts faded into distant frustration, swallowed by the labyrinth of stone. For now at least, the canyon had chosen to protect them. The canyon swallowed sound the deeper they went, until even the distant echoes of pursuit faded into a ghostly hush. Noah slowed the horse as the twisting passage narrowed, stone walls rising like weathered giants on either side. At last, the trail ended in a small box canyon, closed on 3 sides by sheer rock, open only where they had entered. A perfect hideout, a natural fortress carved by centuries of wind and water. Noah scanned the space with a keen, seasoned eye. "This'll do," he murmured. Vivi slid off the horse before he could offer a hand. Her legs trembled from the hard ride, but she steadied herself quickly. The horse snorted, exhausted but alive, and Vivi moved toward a shallow seep where clear water trickled down the rock face. She cupped her hands, letting the animal drink from her palms, murmuring soft words in Apache, old words, comforting words. The horse calmed at the sound of her voice, its breathing evening out. Noah watched the scene quietly, struck by the calm certainty she carried in moments like this. a wild, grounded strength that came from the land itself. He set down his rifle, checking the chamber with practiced focus, his fingers moving with smooth, methodical precision. The tension of the chase lingered on his shoulders, tight and heavy. Vivi felt it too, like a shadow stretching across the canyon floor. She looked up at the sky above them, a thin slice of blue framed by towering stone. The air here was cooler, quieter. For the first time since morning, her chest loosened. "You lost your home," she said softly, eyes still fixed on the strip of sky. "I lost mine too." The words floated into the still air, simple yet sharp. Noah glanced at her, really looked. The steady, guarded expression he wore often softened, revealing something raw underneath. He holstered his revolver and stepped closer, slow enough that Vivi didn't tense. "I did," he admitted, "and I've been walking ever since, trying to figure what comes after." Vivi didn't turn to him, but her voice dipped low, almost fragile. "There is no after for some of us, only pieces." Noah hesitated, then reached out, not to touch her cheek or her hand, but the edge of her worn, earth-colored cloak. His fingers brushed the fabric gently, reverently, as if it held the stories she couldn't say aloud. "Maybe out here," he began, voice rough with sincerity, "people like us find something new." Her breath caught, not from fear, but from recognition. Something in his tone felt honest in a way that disarmed her more than any weapon could. She finally met his gaze, her dark eyes reflecting the canyon walls, the quiet water, the hard-earned survival etched into both their lives. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, as if pulled by the same unseen thread, they settled near the canyon wall. Noah sitting with his back against the rock. Vivi a short distance away, her knees drawn up, her braid falling over her shoulder. The canyon held them like a quiet sanctuary. He asked softly, "What was it like before?" Her jaw flexed. She picked at the loose threads of her cloak. "My people were small but strong. We roamed where the rivers still ran clear. Winter was cruel, but we shared everything. Meat, hides, stories. When my mother died..." She paused, swallowing the memory. "The world didn't feel the same." Noah nodded, gaze distant. "Same for me. When my folks passed, the farm felt hollow, like the walls forgot how to hold warmth. Their stories slipped into the dimming air, losses from different worlds, carried with the same ache." "Freedom," Vivi said quietly. "It is a good thing, but it is a lonely thing." Noah exhaled slowly. "Yeah, it is." Their eyes met again. Two lonely souls shaped by hardship, framed by the quiet canyon. A small ember of understanding sparked between them, faint but stubborn, refusing to die. Not affection, not trust, not yet, but something alive, something that hadn't existed the day before. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching long across the stone. In the cold cradle of the box canyon, two people who had lost everything shared a silence that didn't feel empty. The moon rose slow and silver, climbing the canyon walls like a cold lantern hung in the heavens. Its pale light spilled into the box canyon, turning the stone a soft ghost white and washing over Noah and Vivi as they prepared for what lay ahead. The night was still, too still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Noah tightened the cinch on the saddle, his movements deliberate and noiseless. He checked his rifle again, then the revolver at his hip. Every click of metal seemed louder than it should be inside the canyon's stone cradle. "We leave once the moon clears the ridge," he whispered. "The shadows will be longest then, harder for them to see us move." Vivi nodded, though the knot in her stomach tightened. The canyon had sheltered them for a few precious hours, hours where danger felt distant and voices had softened. Now they would trade that fragile safety for the uncertain dark. She glanced upward. The moon's glow brushed the edge of the cliff. Not long now. Noah stepped toward her, lowering his voice. "We'll follow the narrow cut between the rocks. It'll hide our tracks. From there, we can angle north and lose them in the bigger canyons." He hesitated, then spoke the words he'd clearly been turning over in his mind. "If something happens to me..." His voice roughened. "Follow the North Star. It'll lead you to the trading post at Bent's Fort. Someone there will help you. Vivi's head snapped up, eyes flashing with fierce, immediate defiance. No, Noah blinked. Vivi, I don't leave people behind. Her tone was soft, but it carried steel. It echoed off the stone walls with quiet finality. She took a step closer, her face half in shadow, half in moonlight. Determined, unshakable, stubborn in a way that felt almost sacred. You stayed, she whispered, when you could have ridden away and not looked back. I stay too. For a moment, Noah could only stare at her. Something like warmth flickered in his chest. Dangerous, unwelcome, but real. He nodded once, deeply. All right, he said. Together then. The word hung in the air between them, a promise forged in the cold blue light. The moon finally crested the ridge, flooding the canyon in a bright, silent glow. Noah led the horse to the narrow crevice at the canyon's end. A slim passage barely wide enough for one person at a time, it twisted between the rocks like a hidden artery of the earth. Stay close, he murmured. Vivi slipped in behind him, her fingers brushing the canyon wall to steady herself. The stone was icy to the touch. The passage angled upward, sloped sharply downward, then opened into a wider shelf of rock overlooking the valley floor beyond. The night stretched endless before them, vast, shimmering, dangerous. Noah scanned the darkness. Clear, he whispered. Let's move. They stepped out, and the world shattered. A gunshot cracked through the night like lightning ripping open the sky. The bullet screamed past Vivi's ear, grazing the rock and showering them with shards of stone. She stumbled back with a sharp gasp, heart slamming against her ribs. Noah grabbed her arm, pulling her behind a jut of rock. Down! Another gunshot echoed, bouncing off the canyon walls, followed by the faint, triumphant holler of a rider somewhere out in the darkness. They found us, Noah growled, fury sharpening his voice. Vivi pressed her back against the stone, breathing hard, gripping her knife. The moonlight exposed everything, her fear, the danger, the hunters closing in. But it also revealed something fierce and unbreakable in her expression. We run, she whispered. We fight if we have to, Noah added. Their eyes locked, one heartbeat, two, before they pushed off the wall and sprinted deeper into the moonlit passage, the echo of gunfire chasing them into the night. The moon cast a pale, icy glow across the open land as Noah and Vivi burst out of the canyon mouth, the horse charging forward with desperate, adrenaline-fueled power. The wind tore at their clothes, their hair, their breaths. Behind them, the night erupted in shouts, angry, relentless, hungry. Barlow's gang had found their trail again, and they were closing fast. Hoofbeats thundered across the valley floor, growing louder, heavier, like storm clouds rolling in at terrifying speed. Noah didn't look back. He didn't need to. He could feel the danger swallowing the distance behind them. They ain't giving up, he muttered, gripping the reins tight. Vivi cast a quick glance over her shoulder. 4 riders, maybe 5, silhouetted against the moonlit ridge. Their horses cut through the dark like jagged shadows, kicking up dust that shimmered pale in the silver light. Barlow led them, his wide-brimmed hat low, rifle already raised. They're too close, Vivi said, voice sharp with urgency. I know. A gunshot split the night. Noah jerked the reins and the horse veered sharply as the bullet smashed into the dirt where they would have been. Vivi's heart slammed against her ribs, but she stayed steady, leaning with the motion, shifting her weight exactly where they needed balance. Another shot, this one whistled past Noah's shoulder. Noah yanked his revolver free, twisting halfway in the saddle. Hold tight! He fired once, the crack echoing like thunder. Behind them, a rider cursed and pulled his horse sideways to avoid the bullet, nearly colliding with the man next to him. The chase tightened. Vivi clutched the saddle horn with one hand and pointed ahead with the other. There! The dry wash! Take it! Noah didn't question her instincts. He trusted them now. He trusted her. He steered the horse toward a shallow ravine where moonlight clung to pale sand and rattling sage. They dipped into the wash, hooves thundering on packed earth. The walls rose on each side, narrowing the path. Barlow's gang followed. Gunfire exploded behind them again, louder inside the tight space. A bullet sparked off a rock mere inches from Vivi's leg, spraying her with shards of stone. Noah fired back. Two clean, precise shots. The muzzle flash lit the ravine for a split second, turning Noah's silhouette into something fierce and unyielding. But the riders didn't slow. The horse stumbled on a loose stone, stumbling just enough to jolt Vivi sideways. She gasped, catching herself before she slipped from the saddle. Noah grabbed the reins hard, fighting to steady the panicked animal. The ravine curved sharply left. The horse's hind legs skidded. Vivi lunged instinctively, grabbing the reins alongside Noah's hands. "I've got it!" she shouted. For a heartbeat, they were one body, one single desperate intention. Noah's strength, Vivi's balance. Their combined grip pulled the horse back into alignment just before it could crash against the canyon wall. The animal surged forward, regaining its stride with a fierce, determined snort. Noah shot her a quick, breathless glance. "Good save!" Vivi didn't answer. Her chest rose and fell in rapid, sharp breaths, but her eyes burned with focus. "They're gaining again!" Noah cursed under his breath. "We've got one chance. Hold on." He dug his heels into the horse's flanks. The ravine widened suddenly, spilling them out into an open expanse of rolling hills. Noah guided the horse into the shadow of a long ridge, using the land to break line of sight. They rode hard, hard enough that Vivi felt her bones shake with each pounding stride. Behind them, Barlow's gang burst out of the ravine in a furious tangle, their curses echoing across the valley when they realized Noah and Vivi had vanished into the shadows. "Keep low," Noah whispered. They angled north, slipping behind a cluster of boulders, then into a dry creek bed choked with brush. The horse slowed, its breathing ragged but strong. For the first time in a long while, the night grew almost quiet. Vivi looked behind them. No riders, no dust, no gunfire, only shadows. "We lost them," she whispered. "For now," Noah replied, "but Pueblo's still a long ride." Vivi exhaled, a mix of relief, exhaustion, and something deeper. Something dangerously close to hope. They weren't safe yet, but they weren't caught, and they weren't alone. Dawn broke over the plains like a tired promise, soft, pale, and quiet after a night carved from fear and dust. The sky glowed in muted strokes of pink and amber, stretching over the open land like a warm blanket laid across a bruised world. Noah and Vivi rode slowly now, no longer sprinting for their lives but moving with the heavy, bone-deep exhaustion that comes only after narrowly escaping death. Noah's shirt was torn along the shoulder, where a bullet had grazed him. Dried blood clung stubbornly to the fabric. His breath came rough, each inhale a reminder of the price of survival. Yet he stayed upright in the saddle, his posture steady in that stubborn, unbreakable cowboy way, like a man who refused to fall simply because the world expected him to. Vivi rode beside him, her knife still belted at her hip, her hair tangled from wind and chase. Her cheek held a faint cut from flying stone, but she didn't seem to feel it. She broke open a small pouch from her bag and tore strips from a piece of cloth she had washed long ago. With gentle, practiced hands shaped by hardship and healing, she wrapped his shoulder. "You don't have to fuss over me," Noah muttered, though he didn't pull away. Vivi gave him a pointed look, quiet but firm. "You kept me alive last night." Then softer, "I return the strength given." Noah lowered his gaze. Something warm flickered in his chest. Neither comfort nor fear, but something stubbornly, undeniably human. For a while they rode without speaking. The land ahead opened wide, stretching toward the distant faint line of cottonwoods marking the river road to Pueblo. Smoke from early settler chimneys rose in thin trails far to the east. Civilization, shelter, a new beginning, or a new battle. The silence between them wasn't cold. It held things unspoken, things both of them were still learning how to say. Finally, Vivi reined her horse closer. Her voice, when it broke the quiet, was steady in a way that carried weight. "When we reach Pueblo..." She paused, breathing in deeply, the kind of breath taken by someone about to step into fire. "I will not hide who I am." Noah turned his head, studying her with the quiet intensity of a man who measured words carefully. "You shouldn't," he said, "and you won't be alone." The simple truth of the statement sank into her like warmth after a long winter. She searched his face, expecting hesitation, fear, or pity. Yet she found none, only sincerity, only steadiness. "White towns do not welcome people like me," Vivi said, voice low but honest. Noah nudged his horse beside hers until their knees brushed gently. "Then Pueblo will learn something new." Her breath caught, not from fear but from something almost like hope. Dangerous hope, precious hope. The sun continued to climb, brightening the earth, casting long shadows behind them. The trail wound between low hills covered in golden grass, and the world felt strangely, beautifully quiet. The kind of quiet that comes not from emptiness, but from possibility. As they crested a small rise, the land sloped downward, revealing a long stretch of countryside rolling toward Pueblo's distant edge. The wind brushed past them, cool, clean, alive. Vivi lifted her face to it, letting it comb through her hair. Noah watched her out of the corner of his eye, a faint, tired smile tugging at his lips. They rode onward, not as cowboy and captive, not as protector and burden, but as two people stitched together by the harsh thread of survival. Two souls battered by loss yet still moving forward. Two wanderers who had found in each other something rare in the unforgiving West. Not safety, not certainty, but a second chance. And as the horses carried them slowly toward the distant town shimmering in the rising sun, the question hung quietly in the warming air. One neither dared say aloud, but both felt deep in their bones. What happens when two lost people finally reach a place where the world expects them to start over? The road to Pueblo stretched long before them, and they rode it together.